The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. For the first real hour of his Johto journey, Gold felt elated as he walked. He had direction, and more importantly, he had a friend in spirit. He could still hardly believe it. A Pokemon of legendary stature, famed all over Johto, took personal interest in him. She was his life-giver, his secret protector, and a lover of my soul. When this latter thought crossed his mind, Gold shook his head profusely and shoved it away, his face flushed with shame. It was a beautiful sentiment, but one that he could not bring himself to accept. Spirit was the pinnacle of perfection. When he'd first looked upon her, he'd known it at once. He, by contrast, was a naive commoner. An infinite chasm lay between them. There was no question that Spirit looked at him with love in her eyes, but he knew with certainty that he would never be worthy of that love. He was small and had almost nothing to offer. However great he might become, she would always be too good for him. Gold's mood dampened slowly as he continued to think this way. He pondered how he might impress Spirit and possibly earn the love she showed him, but his common sense quickly dismissed the very idea. There was nothing he could do, and the more he thought about it, the more illogical it seemed for Spirit to care for a nobody like him in the first place. At length, he all but convinced himself that his initial impression had been wrong, and he was a mere servant at most. Now that she had saved his life, lowly as he was, the pressure was on him to perform the best duty he possibly could. "But how can I know that?" he pondered with frustration, "if I don't even know the details of my mission?" The rain still had not let up by the time darkness began to fall. Gold's initial happiness had long gone through an afternoon of constant self-deprecation and insecurity. He was wet, tired, and miserable, and hungry from going without lunch. After walking non-stop for hours, he had expected to catch sight of society again, or at least see some change in his surroundings. Nothing seemed different, not even the behavior of the local fauna. The endless downpour apparently kept most Pokemon confined to their burrows in the undergrowth, but every now and then he would see the tall grass shake as something skittered by. It made him nervous. In the relative light of day, he had not seriously considered the possibility of an actual Pokemon attack. The animals in this part of the region were historically low-leveled, which was why the Johto Journey began here. The largest of them didn't even come up to his kneecap in size. Even if something was bold enough to attack him, he could handily beat it off with Spirit's stick in the daylight. At some point, however, he would have to sleep. The nocturnal predators would be out then, the bug types among them. Gold shuddered. Bug Pokemon were exponentially larger than normal insects, and they had no inhibitions about biting whatever looked or smelled like food to them. Just as the last traces of daylight vanished, Gold noticed a flickering glow further ahead through the trees. He redoubled his pace, and 3 tents came into view. In their midst was a campfire, next to which sat a boy roasting 3 hot dogs. He was about Gold's age, and at his feet sat a little blue crocodile-like animal. Gold slowed his steps and approached the clearing with his hands slightly raised. The crocodile creature snapped its head towards him and growled, and the other boy looked up, startled. Hi." Gold stopped where he was, noting alarm on the camper's face. "You're a Pokemon trainer, right? So am I." "Hey!" The trainer turned and scurried timidly into one of the tents, taking his roasting stick with him. Gold waited uncertainly for what felt like a minute, before two different boys emerged from the same tent. The third one followed, cowering behind them. The tallest of the trainers pointed at Gold, and though his face was hard to make out in the dark, his tone was less than friendly. "Who are you? What do you want?" These were the very questions that Spirit had asked him at their first encounter. Unlike Spirit, however, the tall boy's questions sounded more like accusations. Gold was lost for words momentarily, but he found his voice. My name's Gold. I'm a Pokemon trainer. I was just looking for a safe place to spend the night out here." There was a moment's pause as the three trainers looked at each other. Their faces were still masked by the dark, but the tall boy's answer rang with skepticism. "You're a Pokemon trainer?" he asked. "Where's your gear? Look at you! You've got nothing but the soaking wet clothes on your back! Do you even have any Pokemon?" Gold opened his mouth, but again froze before he could speak. The tall boy had asked something that he'd not seriously considered somehow. Was he a Pokemon trainer? But what kind of trainer had no Pokemon? "Maybe we should get him a towel," muttered the other boy, this one sporting a ponytail. "He's obviously come a long way in the rain." "He's obviously shady is what he is," the tall one shot back. "Who names their kid Gold? Are you messing with us, huh?" Gold backed up a step, astonished at the sudden hostility of the tall boy's attitude. It's a weird story," he said lamely. "You probably wouldn't believe me if I told you. Look, you're right, I don't have any trainer stuff, but I am on the Johto Journey. All I want here is a little shelter." In the silence that followed, the ponytail trainer looked back to the tall boy. "Come on, Todd," he coaxed. "Whatever the truth is, you can see this guy is exhausted. We should do the right thing. Ivan, back me up on this!" The timid boy, who had been standing silently behind them, shrugged his shoulders and avoided eye contact. The tall boy sighed explosively. "Fine," he snapped. "He can share your tent or whatever, but keep him away from the food bag. I provided the money for that, and at the rate we're burning through supplies, it'll be out by the third gym as is." To emphasize his point, the tall boy retreated back to the fire, pointed to a bumpy-looking sack, then at Gold. "You can have shelter, not food. Totodile, guard!" With that, he grabbed a bread bun from the bag, resealed it, and slipped into his tent. Silence resumed once more. All that could be heard was the crackling of the fire. Even the rain had stopped pattering at last. I wasn't going to ask to sleep in anyone's tent," Gold mumbled. "I'll just lay against a tree or something." The ponytail boy gave him a weak smile. "I'm sorry about that," he said, scratching his head. "It's our second night out here, and we're all on edge. Ivan here misses his room and computer. I miss my girlfriend," he said with a bitter laugh. "And Todd won't admit it, but he already misses his parents. Plus, the weather's been lousy, and we badly misjudged how much everything would cost for this trip. Potions especially." Gold settled himself against the nearest tree trunk and crossed his arms, nodding at the timid boy. "I won't be a bother. Where are you guys from?" The one called Ivan made eye contact for a brief moment before looking away and rocking back and forth, fidgeting with his hands. "You won't get anything out of Ivan," said Ponytail, shrugging. "Not before he gets used to you. The three of us are the Goldenrod City group for this year. You?" "Ekrotik," said Gold, laying his stick across his legs. "Ekrotik? What did you do? Sprint the whole way from New Barktown this morning?" Gold sighed. Ponytail's bemusement was decidedly good-natured, but there was simply no way he would believe the tale of Gold's encounter with both Lugia and Ho-oh. And yet, foolish as it might sound, this boy had stood up for him. Gold owed him for that. gathering his courage and bracing himself for ridicule, he resolved to give his hosts the best campfire story they would hear in a long time. There's a legend about the old burned tower in my hometown where the phoenix once dwelt.